Ahoy everyone, welcome to City Skylines. My name is Captain Corndog and this is the city of Cliffpointe. Alright, so in this video, as the title says, I'm building a huge industrial port. The idea for this area started off small and ended up growing to a proportion that I wasn't prepared for. The reason being was that I started off building just the port, but I wanted to incorporate the special industrial buildings like the car and steel factories. But the buildings ended up being much bigger than I had anticipated, so I ended up having to allocate more land for this area. It ended up looking pretty good, so I'm happy with it. It also just adds a lot of jobs for later down the line when we expand the city to take care of the massive need for homes. Unfortunately, this area won't work properly without some of the other industrial areas up and running, but for the time being, it's mostly just for looks. In the next couple of episodes, we'll have that taken care of, so it'll be fine for now. Anyways, back to the build. What I wanted to build in this area was a small alcove with all of the fishing docks built around it so that the ships have easy access in and out of the harbor. I also wanted to include lighthouses on each side of the harbor, but decided against it later because I thought it would be nicer to have just one as a highlight to the area. I ended up having a couple issues with some of the stuff in this build as usual, but figuring out how to use the mods and other things I have is half of the challenge anyway. The train in this first area was my first challenge. I had a design in my head and for the most part it worked out well, but I kept flooding the area and I wasn't sure how deep it should be to fit boats, so I figured better safe than sorry and keep it as deep as I thought was necessary. After I built everything, I let the city run for a few minutes and everything seems to be working fine, so that's always good to know. Here I am trying to get these lighthouses to work. My biggest issue is trying to get the terrain around them to work because I wasn't quite sure how they were supposed to go into the ground. It seemed like they were supposed to go on land, but they didn't quite fit correctly. So I just did what I could and made it look nice. Like I said earlier, one of the lighthouses ends up going later on, so it doesn't really matter. I found these animated gantry cranes on the workshop and I really like them because there aren't many animated props, especially for this kind of stuff, so it was cool to find them and be able to incorporate them, even though getting them to pop down properly ended up being a bit of a nuisance. I wanted to build this commercial dock on the right side of the harbor and expand more to the east, but the dock couldn't be placed on that side for some reason. So I ended up building it on the left side because I didn't want to risk that it would take up room that was needed for other buildings if it was in the middle. This is probably one of my favorite parts because with these containers here and the moving gantry crane, this really gives a lot of life to this area. It's a lot cooler looking than the default ones for the vanilla stuff. So the next challenge in the build was trying to figure out how to place all the docks along this quay so that I could line up the road to connect them in somewhat straight of a line. I'm not sure why, but getting everything to the same level kept being an issue, and I had to keep adjusting everything back to its original height. Once the docks were laid down and the routes were drawn out, I started filling in the area with some warehouses and some generic industrial buildings to fill in some more of the open space. I found a modular industry building pack that was really helpful here. The buildings clipped together really well, and I was able to mix and match them to build a couple unique structures to give it a bit of variety. Then I just added in some cosmetic stuff around the area to make it look like things were actually going on. Built a small construction area with some dump trucks and some loaders and stuff around this area, and some loading docks for a couple of the buildings, and then some cracks and marks around the area to make it look like it's been used. The only thing on my mind was industrial, so anything I could think of that I thought would look good, I just plopped it down. Unfortunately, these little trailers right here kind of stick out into the street, but the cars won't really be affected by that, so I'm not really worried about that too much. Since this was a heavy industry area, I figured having a lot of cracks on the roads here made sense. And then, yeah, having a big plop of dirt there with no streaks or anything around it seemed kind of weird, so I placed down some decals there to make it look dirty. I tried to stick everything that was fish related in this area, so here I am putting down the fish factory and the fish market so they're close to the docks and they can get everything they need from this area before it goes out to be sold somewhere else. I didn't really have a layout plan for the roads, as you will obviously see as I'm building it. I'm just kind of building as I go. And now we start getting into the part that threw me off a little. Like I said at the start of the video, the size of these buildings are gigantic. So I ended up taking a good bit of time trying to figure out road layouts and terraforming the peninsula to fit in everything. Fortunately for you guys, I'm going to cut out a lot of that stuff because I really did a number to the land around this area and the water around it didn't like it very much. Luckily, I was able to somewhat fix everything and get it back to normal. I ended up feeling so bad about taking out so many trees in this area that I put more down in a different area to make up for it. This particular building ended up being an oil refinery, so I just put down a bunch of oil related objects. Trucks, tanks, drums, all of it. Next up was the car factory, and the only thing I really did to extend this area was plop down some pre-made car lots and line them up to make them look like they're getting ready to take them away to be sold somewhere. One of the things that I used towards the end of this build that I wish I had sooner is this 8x1 ploppable concrete. It really helps get a refined edge without having to rely on the surface painter tool. I can plop down the tiles and outline the area and use the surface painter to fill in the gaps. It works perfectly. I didn't really have a lot of paper products to put down around the paper factory, so I just placed down a lot of what I did have, which was 2 different size rolls of paper and an awning over the top to protect them from the rain. I also added in some forklifts and some box trucks around to simulate product being moved out of the factory. And last but not least, we have the landscaping. I couldn't put much down here because some of these buildings produce pollution, so I did what I could for them. Mostly just putting bushes around the parking lots and scattering them around the open areas and adding in some of the gum trees I love so much. I didn't put any palm trees in the area because I figured this isn't really a glamorous area and wouldn't really have tropical plants around. I would assume as much of the land as possible would be used to build something to be able to get as much money as they can out of it. Alright, well that about wraps up this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like button if you did enjoy. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see me add to the city, and join the Discord down in the description and say hello. And make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can see every video when it comes out. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day.